Thank you.
Lou DeBaca, he was already on stage half an hour ago, so I'm not going to introduce him again, but he was the chief anti-slavery man of the Obama administration. He's going to moderate a panel.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Monique, and thank you, everyone. This is the diehards that are here for the last session, and we appreciate it because the work that all of the finalists, not just the 4 winners, have done is something that is worth waiting for. I think that for the companies involved, you've heard the longevity, whether it's the family-owned companies, whether it's the co-op, folks who have developed these values in their companies and have brought those values to play. One of the things that we were so lucky to see, and to me is always one of the most special things about whenever we can experience the work of Anish Kapoor, is the idea of seeing some of his process, seeing how he thinks through these things. We can also go and experience the amazing sculpture, and we can be moved by it, but there's that extra little thing when you start to see how he looks at process and what the internals are. And that's what, in the little bit of time that we have, I thought that perhaps we could do. I'm going to give you the questions in advance so you can think about them while we're talking through, because we have about 18 minutes and 44 seconds, according to this clock, to have that conversation. So, Pippi, you inspired me as to where I would keep it.
It's handy.
So
it's a trend, obviously.
It's a trend, the boot as purse trend. So I guess for me, one of the things that is important, thinking about process, is driving that value, and not values as in the value chain or the cost savings that could be out there, but driving the values of the company, driving the values of your founders out of the CSR, out of even the procurement teams, across the companies, but then also out into your supply chain, the people you're working with. It's one thing, especially for a family-owned company, to say, this is our values, this is what we want to be. It's another thing entirely to suddenly go 6 levels down or across into the other parts of the company. And so that's going to be question number 1. Question number 2 is kind of what now? How do you take this out into the world, again, to convey to people that these are your values, not only that they're your values, but now you've been recognized in this way. How do you then take that out, whether it's to other partners, whether it's to folks who might be making decisions about whether to invest or to finance you, and ultimately to the consumers? So those are the 2 questions. Let's start with number 1. How do you drive these values out from what you're doing? And I think that we'll start, if we can, with our grand prize winner, as far as Adidas is concerned.
You know, as you heard Jill say, our executive board member, through sport, we have the power to change lives. Each one of us, 60,000 of us, believe that. And as I said before, it is our accountability and responsibility to drive this. It's really as simple as that. While stakeholder interest, investor interest, consumer interest are all looked at and taken into consideration, that is not the primary driver. The primary driver is that workers' lives matter. And you know, our program, the SEA, Social and Environmental Affairs Program, was founded as a result of concerns over the presence of child labor. And our core work was around this area in the 1990s. So we didn't shy away from it. And the founding director of the program was actually a former director of Save the Children. So you see that it's sort of, you know, it's not driven from the top. While there is a commitment and alignment, our approach is very bottom-up. It's very practical, so it's driven by practical. Just the fact that we had the Save the Children person as the head of the program says something, you know. So the NGO community, the stakeholder community is important, and our policies and practices sort of came out from that. And the other piece really is that the relationships that we have with our suppliers, we absolutely do not favor short-term contracting. All our policies support and encourage long-term business relationships. And in that scenario, it's very, very easy then to find and fix supply chain issues. And my third piece really would be our own need and drive for transparency and knowledge of our supply chain. So even the program that I manage, which is the Modern Slavery Outreach Program, really looks at going further down the chain. What is happening at the rubber plantations where our rubber is coming from? What about the cattle ranches in Brazil and Paraguay, which are identified as high-risk countries? Is that something we can do alone? Should we be looking at the large meat processing companies? Should we be looking at tire manufacturers because they are sourcing big volumes of rubber? So collaborating with the right partners, because sometimes you don't have a voice. We don't have a voice when it comes to rubber and leather, for example. And we have to recognize that and say that this is not something you cannot boil the ocean in a silo, and you should not. So it's really a combination of all of this that just makes it very easy for us to do this. So.
I think we can see why Adidas is our grand champion as far as making it easy or claiming that the hard is actually easy. Jeffrey, I'm wondering, as far as in a family-owned company, there's, I think, something a lot of people assume in the trafficking world, which is that it's a little easier to do some of these things at a family-owned company than a publicly traded company. I'm not sure if I totally buy that, but I do think that you do have, again, the family's values and everything that can permeate, and then how do you get that out into the world?
Well, I think fundamentally, irregardless of public or private or family-owned or not, I've always said that if you want to be successful with any type of strategy, like a sustainability strategy, it's best when you can hook it on to very strong values of an organization. So at least in my career, I've been most successful in moving things further and deeper and to higher leadership levels when there were strong values in place in the organization. So I think that to me is the kind of ultimate ingredient to having not only anti-slavery provisions in how we do business, but all other aspects of impact reduction and leadership and innovation.
Well, I think also one of the things that we see with CNA is that while they're living it in their business side, the CNA Foundation has also been a very innovative funder of anti-trafficking work around the world. I think that, again, is one of the ways that you're living this global fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a dream for me as a sustainability practitioner, to be working with a foundation that has a very complementary sustainability-focused strategy. So all of the things that we're working on in terms of, eradicating slavery in our own supply chain, the CNA Foundation is actually working on pulling the systemic levers, working on the entire industry, trying to convene other brands and other players to drive towards solutions. And I've never had that type of scenario where this whole ecosystem is present.
It's very inspiring.
Great. It's very great.
And and to me, just the entire cooperative movement, whether it's here in the UK or in the US, where it was very much in farming communities, has always been about more than just the underlying profit. It's been about values. It's been about the community that it serves, et cetera. So I think I'm going to assume that internally this wasn't a huge hard sell to try to work on slavery issues, but it's kind of like the old values of the co-op coming back into the modern era.
It's back to the future. Yes, and very much we think about our pioneers in the 1870s who founded the co-op, a lot actually, excuse me, and what they did in redefining what was a good supply chain and providing safe food for the communities, was the sort of kernel of the beginning of the co-op. And I think we live that out every day. I mean, the stated purpose of the co-op is championing a better way to do business for you and your communities. And of course, these modern day slaves are living in our communities and we can see them When you recognise the signs, you can spot them. And so to be able to actually have direct impact in the communities in which we serve is very, very important and right at the heart of what we do. And because of our store network and our funeral care home network, we are in every single postcode in the country. And because of that, we've got a community that's in every single postcode. And so we can work with people who are disadvantaged, and particularly the modern slaves, to bring them into our environment and give them the opportunity for work. And that's just, it's very consistent with everything we do. And, you know, our 70,000 employees would know about the work we're doing with our modern slaves. They would know about any of the work we're doing that's consistent with our values through the storytelling that we do. So storytelling at the Co-op, we talked about the grassroots, is really important, because what they see then is their colleagues, people they can really relate to, actually doing these things in their day-to-day work, and that's very inspiring. And so it becomes one of those beautiful virtuous circles. And these stores where we have our modern day slaves employed, they obviously have extra support. The person coming to work with us has extra support, but it's been enormously enriching for that entire store workforce of 40 or 50 people. And I think we're just seeing it blossoming. And we're very excited about what this might be in a wider context. So it was an easy sell, very consistent with the values, and very exciting.
One of the things that I often would hear from companies 10 years ago was, oh my God, this is an organized crime problem, and if we hire these survivors, like you're asking us to, that organized crime is going to be somehow coming into our business. And in fact, the folks who took the leap, I think like you, have seen the former slaves, the survivors, end up becoming Employee of the Month, Employee of the Year. They're such a good add-on to the community, and they really want to do the hard work.
And many of them are living right in the middle of the community, in the places where little kernels of organised crime might brew up, and they help reduce it and take it down because they've received something that's given them the dignity and a home and some money and the ability to live a proper life. And so actually they become ambassadors into the community for a sense of calm and, you know, not having the organised crime. And I mean, there are situations where, you know, stores have been protected by employees who've been helped when there's been things going on around, which is even stronger sense that these things make a difference.
Brilliant. Jillian, as far as Intel's concerned, the idea of Intel as a tech company, as well as a manufacturing company, there are kind of several Intels operating at once, and it sounds as though you've been able to incorporate the slavery mission kind of across the different parts of Intel.
Yeah, we have, but I think we should put it into a bit of context, because we came into this from the sustainable supply chain issue of conflict minerals, which obviously addresses conflict in conflict-affected and high-risk areas, but also very serious human rights abuses, child labour, forced labour, and also very serious environmental abuses. So we also had an example of where leadership comes in, because our current CEO at the time in 2009-10 was in charge of our global manufacturing and supply chain. So he took it personally, and he said, I want to eradicate that from our supply chains. And we've come a long way on responsible sourcing of minerals. There's still a long way to go. And we have several vice presidents very motivated on the topic, which has penetrated right across the company. So we have a strong procurement organization, and the global supply management in general. So when anti-trafficking and modern slavery came up, it was a no-brainer, as they say, that there was a direction given at the highest level to go and really work and collaborate and try to address this topic. And we're also, incidentally, trying to work on the responsible minerals story at the same time. There's a new piece of European regulation, and we've helped to set up a public-private partnership bringing governments, supply chain actors, and civil society groups together to help on a non-profit basis to help implement the regulation, because if it's a piece of law and it's not impacting locally in conflict zones, you might as well rip it up. So this is a very meaningful effort to try to address the serious problems going on in conflict zones. So we have that background, and so addressing this topic has been quite an easy sell at the highest level of the company. And collaboration is critical in all of this as well.
Well, speaking of easy sells, hopefully then selling the fact of being an ethical company, a company that works on this successfully, even when there is a problem, continues to work through that problem, et cetera. How do you take that, and more importantly, how do you take this out into the world to make that argument? Every time I get on an airplane, I see those things on the stickers just before you get in saying how many gold stars they've gotten from J.D. Power and Associates or whatever it is. What do you see as far as Intel? We're going to do 1-minute speed rounds on this because of the time. But what do you see as far as Intel taking this out into the world?
Well,
and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But as I said in the acceptance intervention, I think it's a really great acknowledgement of the solid processes we've put in place to address the issue. And it's showing us that we're being recognised for meaningful progress right down through the supply chain. So for us, it's a very big impetus to go out and continue to do the efforts, but also to engage other important players as well, who might not be stepping up at the table, such as non-electronic downstream sectors, for example. So there's a lot of work ahead, but this is definitely an excellent step in the right direction. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Unashamedly, we are going to ask other companies to come and do what we're doing with Bright Futures. They may want to do it differently. They may have a better way to do it. But we are really, coming to a cinema near you is, please come and do Bright Futures programs like ours. And, maybe we can make ours better by learning how they do it. But Co-op's always, at the heart of Co-op is campaigning. So we're going to be campaigning on this. Everybody should be finding a space in their businesses for these colleagues to come and join them.
Wonderful.
It's ironic because Monique and I had a long discussion about this, and I said you should have this question on this panel because I think certainly for us, our employees and the people that are working to eradicate slavery will take a big pride in this, and our employees and our new employees that are coming into our company will see it as a reason to come to our company as an ethical company. I think the consumer question is a really tricky one, and we were talking earlier before we came out here that we're kind of talking about the holy grail of sustainability communications, and put aside slavery, which is a very complicated topic to communicate to consumers. What about, how do you communicate climate change or land use change or erosion or acidification or any of these other things that impact these communities that either purchase or that produce the goods? So I don't know what the answer is on the consumer side. I think that I would be very interested to hear from other brands, other apparel brands, and other folks in the audience what they think about how that should be done. Because it would be a really good thing to get it out to the consumer in a very digestible and tangible way.
Super. Aditya, and can you give me 15 seconds at the end and I'll...
All right, so I'm going to, all that they said. And the challenge really is, because like I said, we're looking at really going down the chain. Finding the right partners is a challenge, and that's what's next for us. Finding the right partners that are working on social and labor standards. And just following on from the consumer bit, my request to the few hundred people here is tell the next 50 people that you meet about the 4 companies here and ensure that your purchasing decisions are based on what you've heard here. And that's how we'll just further the...
Perfect.
Consumers don't like to feel guilty. Consumers don't like to feel guilty.
Yeah.
So it's something we must remember. How do we make that consumer can feel guilty and choose another provider, another supplier? I think it's a job for all of us. Yeah.
To optimism and hope.
And I think that optimism and hope is what we see when we see companies that are starting to bring survivors in as partners, whether it's as employees, whether it's as part of the mission, whether it's worker-informed responsibility, where folks are listening and incorporating that into their procurement, into their auditing, et cetera. And I think that one of the things that, for me, looking at this, is that the reason that you see 15 amazing finalists and these 4 award winners is not because they set out a year ago to win this award. It's because they set out to end modern slavery. And that's what is award-worthy. And that's why you see them on stage today. So thank you, Monique and Anish Kapoor, for this award in the first place. And thank you, all of you, for what you've done.
Thanks to all of you. I just, we have seen the 4 awards, but I said we have also an honorable mention. And I want to say that the jury, in its unanimity, wanted to give the honorable mention to FSC Worldwide for its effort in preventing slavery through fair and ethical recruitment. So congratulations to FSI Worldwide, and I'm glad that they are commended. Thank you to all of you. Bravo. No, Adidas is there, I think.
No, it's there.
It's here, it's here.
So who is, where?
It's probably the co-op.
No, there's the one there.
I'll go scoop it in a minute.
Come on. Should we stay or should we?
No, you can leave the stage. And I think we have to do the photo again with you because you were in that corner and it was not good enough the first day. So
Thank
we
you.
have to do it again. We have a box for that should be given
Excess baggage.
to transport it. I think there is a box. All together first, no? Yeah, all together. Just the 4 of you.
Thank you. So I was getting rid of my speech.
In the center.
It's very innovative.
Yes.
And Anish.
So, just this way, I think.
I think I should hold it like this with both my sisters.
Yeah, exactly, because it's so heavy.
Sorry.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, eh? Yeah,
Lovely.
and it's signed and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So again, yours. So Anish, you have to come back just for Adidas, because the picture was not good. Yeah, they were in the dark corner, so they want to do it again.
You know what? I don't you also, yeah.
Share the.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's very beautiful.
you're happy
It's
with
heavy.
Show it the other way. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah.
You always put together. I have to get this out. Such a great show.
We have a cocktail upstairs, and after we have the Nazanin, free Nazanin play for the ones who are interested. I recommend it because it's an extraordinary story that is ongoing, and it's one of my colleagues. It's about one of my colleagues at the Thomson Reuters Foundation, as I said this morning. But let's.
Not being a guy, I had to use my boots. So,
Nobody has